hours got revoked due to the COVID pandemic. Dr. Chakraborty is a keynote speaker and has spoken on the domains of personal branding and building career profiles at various business schools, including IITs, IIMs, and MDI Gurgaon. Next, we have with us Mr. Vishwas Anand, who is an international multi-award winning B2B marketing expert, handling large-scale thought leadership marketing projects as marketing and communication lead at Infosys Knowledge Institute. He holds an MBA from IIM Kozhikode. Vishwas is a jury member for the DMA Asia Eco and Asia Pacific Steve Awards. He is also guest lectured at IIMs and is a panel speaker at conferences including Oracle CMO Roundtable and World Marketing Congress, among others. And for the last and the final panelist, we have with us Ms. Aditi Mishra. Ms. Mishra is the Chief Strategy Officer at Lodestar She drives the strategic content as the Indian head for strategy and product, spanning insights and research to ensure superior solution delivery for our clients. She leads India representation of IPG Media Lab and runs the development and deployment of cutting-edge proprietary global tools like Growth Accelerator and Wave, as well as multiple local tools which span across touch points, capturing the new digital consumer. With a passion of crafting innovative comm solution to client issues, she has driven the team to win awards at various advertising forums like Goa Festival, Festival of Media, MVs across different brands. A very warm welcome to all the speakers for being with us this afternoon. Over to you, Saklain.
Yes, thank you, Pooja. And we'll be hearing from our esteemed panelists very soon. We can't wait for the discussion to begin. But before the discussion begins, let me just introduce our moderator for today. He is one of our own from MDI Murshidabad, Dr. Ravi Shankar Bhakat sir. Dr. Ravi Shankar Bhakat is a researcher, practitioner, and educationer with over 11 years of experience. His major academic credential includes an MBA, a PhD, as well as the UGC NET. He has largely been involved in marketing and general management. Dr. Ravi's research interests are on contemporary customer behavior in the modern marketing environment. Many of his relevant works on current marketing and business practices have been presented and showcased at international conferences held at ICSSR, IIM Bangalore, IIM Lucknow, IIT Bhubaneswar, and other prestigious universities. Dr. Ravi has published papers in Index International and national journals of repute with high citations. He has also served as a full-time scholar, teacher, and research analyst at NIT Trichy, Institute of National Importance. As an academic reviewer, he works with prestigious publications like Sage, Emerald, Science Direct, Springler, and IGI Global. Dr. Ravi has held different executive positions in startups and small enterprises before entering academia. He has also worked on projects for many client segments in B2B marketing, institutional services, retailing, and so on. Thank you, sir, for your time and presence. So one last point, I would request all the students to send their questions throughout the panel discussion to Amok, member of Syndicon. Instead of sending the message in chat, just send it directly to Amok via chat. We'll be taking the relevant question in our question and answer round. Over to you now, Ravi sir, for the panel discussion.
Thank you, Saklain. Thanks for the introduction. So on behalf of MDI Murshidabad, I would like to welcome you all to this session on propaganda and persuasion in the era of social media, internet, advertising, and television. As we know that propaganda and persuasion, there is a very thin line. And today we would like to know from our esteemed panelists, what is the difference between propaganda and persuasion? Are they same? Are they different? If they are different, how much they are different? If they're same, how much they are same? So I would like to request our esteemed panelists to answer this question from their perspective. So may I request Dr. Subra ma'am to give her thoughts on this.
Hi everyone, namaste. A very happy Basant Panchami and Saraswati Puja to everyone. When I was a child, this day was the most important day for me because I would take all my books and keep it in front of the puja ghar at my home. And I think before my medical entrance exam, I would be like praying a lot for Ma Saraswati to get me clear for them, and it worked because I was able to clear the entrance. So today is a very special day for all of us. So I would advise everyone that, drop a small prayer for the pursuing education of all the people who are present and our youth and our future generations. So coming to Dr. Ravi's question, the difference between propaganda and persuasion, I won't go too much into the jargons or too much into the definitions, But for me, since I have worked across 3 countries by now, one major difference between propaganda and persuasion is propaganda is not something that is organically grown within our community. Sometimes it can also be motivated by foreign factors, or the funneling of a particular thought process or a particular ideology through different mediums is propaganda. You must have seen different kinds of regimes in different countries. And what propaganda did was continuous repetition. When I teach personal branding to students across my different webinar sessions and speaking sessions, I always say that, you know, how people build their personal brand by continuously re-articulating their USP. Similarly, in propaganda, if a particular point, it might be right, it might be wrong, but if it is repeated continuously with different kind of connotations in different kind of mediums, slowly people start believing in it, even if it is not true, even if it is not logical. And nowadays, because we live in the digital age, and especially post COVID, everything is digital. Our entire lives are digital. I am sure 100% of all of us check our phones after getting up. And if any one of us is saying कि यार मैं तो नहीं check करती, तो then maybe आप बड़े महान हैं, but हम तो जरूर check करते हैं अपना phone. And our entire lives are on our phones, on our social media platforms, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on WhatsApp. We wake up and we check मुझे कितने emails आए, मुझे कितने messages आए. If you have put out a post yesterday, you check how many likes and views you have gotten. Our entire worlds are online, and that is a wonderful medium for many agencies to funnel a particular viewpoint or a way of thinking. Whereas persuasion is more of what marketeers or people like me use, whereas we come up with different kinds of programs or different kind of strategies to see what our customer wants, what do they think, what do they feel. And one of the biggest traits of being a good marketeer is putting yourself in the shoes of your customer, and not just the elite or the 1%er, but the majoritarian. So persuasion is something which I feel a lot of marketeers imply, a lot of corporates imply, which is just to persuade your customer base upon your products, your services, or what puts you apart and is special about your company or about your product. So I think the younger generation who grew up with social media, I remember, I think Facebook became very active in the year 2010. So the generation before that, हमको इतना आइडिया नहीं रहता था, और हम लोग बहुत खुश भी रहते थे क्योंकि हमें नहीं पता था ना हमारे उस दोस्त का वो प्रमोशन हो गया या उस बंदे की शादी हो गई. We didn't know all of that. So I think we lived in a happier time. I can see Ravi sir is nodding, so Ravi sir agrees with me. So at that time, social media was not very rampant. तो शर्मा जी का बेटा शर्मा जी अगर आके बताते थे कि मेरे बेटे का IIT में हो गया है, at that time आपको पता चलता था. But now, because of social media, not just propaganda and persuasion, but I would also like to acknowledge how much pressure our younger generations feel. There is so much pressure on this coming younger generation, you know, of early success, of being a prodigy early. You watch Shark Tank, और आपको लगता है यार वो 21 साल में उसने फंडिंग ले ली, मैं यहाँ क्या कर रही हूँ बैठ के. So I want to tell to all the younger generation, it is okay if you are going at your own pace. Nobody shows the defeats, nobody shows the breakdowns, nobody shows the depression that they go through in their day-to-day life on social media. All that they are showing are the happy pictures, or in case of girls, in the picture where we are having a good hair day. So those are the kind of narratives that we put on social media, but that does not mean that we don't struggle. We struggle each and every day, but that is not portrayed. So don't, especially, you know, as MBA students, you will see so many success stories, overnight success stories. किसी का कहीं placement हो गया और आपको लगता है यार इसके marks तो मुझसे भी घटिया थे, इसका कैसे placement हो गया. Believe me, if you keep working hard and if you believe in the divine, in my case, the divine mother, then your time will come. But what matters is your belief in yourself. So do not let social media sway you, and do not let social media give you an inferiority complex, because nobody puts the struggles and the defeats on social media. So that is what I wanted to tell to all the students who are present here today. Also, because me and my team, we help a lot of students with internships, we help a lot of colleges with internship opportunities. So if the placement team is there in this meeting today, reach out to me after this session and we will connect you guys with more internship opportunities. So that was it from my side. Sorry, Ravi sir, I think I went a bit over the time. Over to you.
It's good. Yeah.
First of all,
Glad
thank you very much,
to know
Dr.
the thoughts.
Shubhra, for giving this wonderful opportunity to our students to work under your guidance for summer internship. Thank you.
Yes, ask them to reach out to me. We have a lot of opportunities for them to choose from.
A lot of opportunities. I think anybody, Saklen or anybody from this committee, Syndicon can approach madam. Thank you.
Yes, sir. We'll do that. In the mean, we'll do that surely. Yes, Ravi sir, you can continue.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Subha ma'am. Now I'd like to request Vishwas Anand ji, based on our experience as a marketer, how do you see, sir, the persuasion and propaganda as a marketer perspective?
First of all, thank you so much for inviting me to this panel discussion, and a very happy Saraswati Puja to all of you. It's wonderful actually to be here with everyone. So first I'll just start off from both views. I like to take a dual mindset. So I'll start off not just as a marketer, but the way personalization has really spanned through and taken us all by storm. So what we really need to be wary about today is the idea of cyber-balkanization, and that has really created these kind of filter bubbles across the world. So we're literally living in these unique universes, and as Dr. Shupra also mentioned, I mean, there's a lot of things that's happening, early successes, and we tend to be swayed by the movements that are happening across the globe. But then the algorithms of the internet are at work in such cases, and we need to really understand that such algorithms are only working against us if we don't really put weight in the larger scope of things. So if we have a narrow focus or a selective exposure towards certain information, it will only serve the information seekers' confirmation bias. So this happens when we are not able to really accept conflicting views that are really grounded in the idea of cognitive dissonance. So we feel that sense of discomfort always when presented with such conflicting ideas or views. Now, how we really handle those conflicting views becomes a case of persuasion vis-a-vis the propaganda. So a false propaganda, you can either accept it, you can reject it, but when we accept it, we really persuade ourselves to assume that no conflict actually exists. And reducing this cognitive dissonance is critical. How we do that is also even more critical, because reconciling differences becomes challenging when we have to change our behaviors. So that becomes essentially a very important aspect of looking at it, because it's a trade-off between data exchange versus applying those personalization filters on our lives. So at one level, if we fine-tune our preferences, we really see how the changing media is attuning to such preferences. So in a way, your identity shapes the media that you consume. But at a very subliminal level, it's the way our preferences are getting modified to suit the different media, and ultimately media is shaping our identity. So we need to be very careful about that aspect as well. Coming to the question on how marketing has really changed over time. So we've seen how traditional marketing really came in the form of constant interruption. So it could be TV ads, it could be commercials, billboards, etc. Now, content saturation was at play. I mean, in 2014, 15-ish, we saw a huge number of, if you take the case of content marketing, that really came about then, and to 2010, 2011, it was just making waves. And then 2015, almost every brand was into content marketing. So at that point, what marketers realized is we needed to really engage and retain our audiences through very focused content, tailored, not really pitching our products and services, but really moving into the realm of thought leadership. So we are huge advocates at the Infosys Knowledge Institute, the whole idea of thought leadership and leading with insight. So one of the panel discussions that I attended was by Christ sometime in October 2020, where we discussed the value of B2B thought leadership. And one of the key elements of one of the key insights that came out was that 91% believed thought leadership was important to their decision making. So when it comes to really influencing decision making among B2B brands, that is where majority of the decision making happens, in the thought leadership space, not really pitching for products and services as such, because the most valued qualities were being forward thinking in your approach, being action oriented, and having a fresh thinking mindset. So I'd like to start off with that and hand it over to the rest of the panel.
Thank you, Vishwasji. Now I'd like to request Aditi ma'am to share her thoughts from strategy perspective, as ma'am, you have extensive experience at strategic level. How do you see propaganda and persuasion from your perspective?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ravi. I would like to echo the thoughts I think that everybody has said. It's a great day to have a discussion like this where we are, sort of probing and questioning. And that is what I think Saraswati Puja means to me, that, we always have the ability to question. We have the ability to think and ask why something is so. And interestingly, that's also the way that we look at this topic. To my mind, the critical difference between propaganda and persuasion is that in a propaganda, you cannot question. There is one view, it's somebody's view, which is to be accepted by everyone. And then you use different kind of techniques, you use different kind of ways to make it like a final authoritarian given truth. It's like, there is no question, there is no way that you can ask why this is so, or how should I accept it, or the rationale. It's a given thing. You have to believe. And if we go back into history, you will see whenever authoritarian rules have happened, that is when propaganda is at its worst, because you want people to accept. And one of the things I think we as people, and especially the wonderful young minds which are there on this panel, is that, we need to question, we need to always have the ability to ask why. Why is something so? Not in a conflicting way, but in a genuinely trying to understand and learn way. Because when we do that, that is what the essence of building up a strategy, whether for ourselves, whether for our thought process, whether for the brands we work on. That's the genesis of that story. So that is a big quality I think we should try to inculcate, and we should always try to live it. Because propaganda can only be successful when people don't question. And interestingly, what Dr. Shubhra spoke about, everybody gets very influenced by what they see, but nobody questions what is the reality of that. We know nobody's life can be 24/7 happy. It's not real. It's not human. Then we would not be in a human state. But we just get so influenced. And this is a function of also the fact how, we have evolved as human beings. There is so much, there's a tremendous amount of information pressure which exists. We never had so much data and information available at the flick of a finger. And just to keep pace with that, what has happened or what has taken a backseat is the depth that we would go into any subject or topic. Earlier, when we used to study, if you wanted to do research, you had to actually know what you wanted to research. And then you had to put in a lot of hard work in terms of finding that research. Today, it is like, we will type 10 things in Google. And quite often, we talk to young people, even in our companies, sometimes at home also, where you have to say that, listen, Google will give you the answer to the question you ask. But you have to know what question to ask. If you do not ask the right question, do not expect that you will get the perfect answer. It doesn't happen. And for that, we need to think. And that's what Vishwas also said, that, we must put in our cognitive abilities on the fore. We must ask. So that's one thought that I had on propaganda. The other thought around persuasion. Persuasion, as we discussed, is a technique which is applied not just in marketing, but in life as well. As a mother, if I have to tell my child, listen, I don't think you should go out right now because it's COVID and, it's not safe, that is also persuasion. Now, whatever techniques we apply for that, they are always techniques which will look at first the point of view of the person you're talking to. What is their situation? What are they thinking? What is their reality? And then you will try to show your message, show your story by making it meaningful for them. And that is the key difference in persuasion, because that is what, all of us, all our lives do. There's a very common test which happens in marketing. And I know ragging is the unpopular term now, but the informal getting together of, different students used to be, sell yourself, sell something. And that selling, that sharing of, why you should believe me is what persuasion is really all about. And it is a very, very important skill, I would say, as we go along. So whether as friends, whether in groups of people, whether as marketeers, whether just as a person who wants to sell an idea and do a startup, we must be able to persuade people to our point of view. And one of the biggest things we need to be able to do for that is to understand the person we are trying to persuade. What is their life? What is their reality? How will what I say make sense to them? So that's the thought that I would like to leave with the students. Always be curious, question. There are no given truths anywhere. Must evaluate for yourself and then go ahead. And the second thing is, whatever message, whatever sharing you want to do with people, always look at where they are coming from, because your story needs to change and adapt accordingly.
Thank you. Thank you, Aditi ma'am. So here is a next thought which we are going to discuss, is that we see often like so many memes around us. Then we talk about moment marketing and similar kind of things, which leads to viral marketing. So how humor and shock, these kind of elements, should be used in propaganda and persuasion? I would like to request any of our esteemed panelists to answer this question.
I think I'll speak a little bit,
Sure.
but my take is a little different. I love memes. And as a marketer, I'm here to tell you memes are the future of marketing. So in the audience, jo bhi students bade funny se hote hain, in every batch you have those guys who are really witty and who are very good with puns. If you like making memes, please keep that habit ahead, because companies are slowly entering into moment marketing. And what is this actually doing? It's humanizing the corporates and the companies for the customer, because companies don't want to be a separate entity for the customer anymore. They want to be kind of part of the customer circle, because they are started to have conversations with their customers. So I think a couple of companies that do amazing moment marketing, you have Amul, you have Fevicol. Fevicol is fantastic. I think the Durex brands are also very good. Zomato is fantastic in moment marketing. So what is it doing? Because our millennial generation, they are not very formal anymore. They want to feel connected to the brands that they use and that they work for. So I think humor and moment marketing are the way to go, and they are going to rise in the future. In fact, I'm sure you must have heard about this, right? In Zomato, sometimes students or applicants who make amazing memes are getting hired specifically for moment marketing. So I think the future looks very bright for people. I'm not one of them, I wish I was, but the future looks very bright for people who can, catch in on the wave that is going on in the audience and who can put it in a humorous form. And I think Amul has been doing that for years. Zomato and all are new players, new kids on the block, but Amul is the father of moment marketing and coming up with different puns. I'm sure, I think people before the social media era, you will always remember whenever you used to go to the market and in your city, there is a Amul board. You would always look at it. Whenever something is happening, you would look at the Amul board. I would always have an ice cream after that because it made me hungry. But I would always look to see what Amul's take is on this current happening. Over to my other panelists.
Okay, let me try to give my take. And I agree, today, because of the information overload, you need something which helps your message stick. And humor is a very, very good way to simplify messages, to allow people to understand something without making a big hoo-ha about it. It's interesting you spoke about Amul. It's one of the brands that we work with. And I think more and more what we are seeing is that what younger people, not just millennials, but even Gen Z, what they seek is a very easy, digestible way to get a message. Nobody wants pontification. Nobody wants lot of big stories. You want quick, easy ways, what we call, bite-sized messaging. And that is what I think memes do absolutely brilliantly, wherein you see different contexts coming together and presenting the information in a very easy way. It doesn't cause dissonance. Sometimes in these kind of discussions where we are having very intense kind of points of view, that's not something that this generation really wants to get into. They want to have very easy going. It's not that they don't think, it's not that they don't have views. It's just that the expression is very simplified, and that helps. Coming to the other question you asked, which is shock. Shock is a very dangerous way that I would say in terms of any brand or marketer choosing to go that path, because it can cut both ways. While you can shock people by saying, did you know that you have so much of a problem, but it may also alienate a brand. And therefore shock is something that when we work with brands, we typically do not want to associate with. On the contra side, shock is something that propaganda uses absolutely very, very strongly, because it catches attention, it dramatizes the story, it magnifies the the negativity that you are trying to spread. Because at heart of every propaganda, you will see there is something saying that if you don't believe this, your life will be terribly wrong. And that negativity is always compounded by putting some shock value. So that would be my view.
Yeah, I just like to add to the points. I mean, very valid and valuable points given by Dr. Shubhra and Aditi. So I just like to add it to just kind of contextualize, because in the B2B space, I mean, we've seen cartoons, we've seen memes having just taken off. I mean, it wasn't very popular like the Amul ads and the B2C segment. So I would just like to add a framework here that I've helped devise. So I feel brands can take to either humor or shock, as both our panelists have spoken about. But as long as it can really adhere to some kind of a model. So I kind of looked at this from this space, like the authenticity, accuracy, and agility model. So one, if you look at authenticity, it's really about standing or trusting the integrity of the brand's overall messaging, and really combining the psychographic consistencies or personality traits of the brand. So if the brand has a humorous take on certain things that is aligned with the values of the brand, I think why not? I mean, you can, it's a fair thing to go ahead with. The second is the accuracy in terms of the specific validation of the message, because memes sometimes can be misconstrued. It should not really take a hit on the brand value as such. So the specific validation of the message needs to come in. It needs to be credible, even if it's a meme, even if it's a humorous take on any topic or subject. I think that really shouldn't be pushing out a false narrative as such. So it should not be harming the brand in any way. The other thing is the ability to be agile enough. The agility is the third A, where the nimbleness of the brand, so be it an individual or an executive within the brand, or the brand itself puts out on social media. So if you can be adaptable and have a changing persona, and be able to take down fake content that is present today, I think that is something we can also keep in mind, apart from the very good points made by the other panelists.
Thank you, sir. So this is another question. It is to Mr. Vishwas Anandji. Sir, how do you see that B2B companies, they should adopt different strategy or different techniques compared to B2C companies like IT giants?
Definitely, it's a very valuable question. Just I'll give the case of Infosys itself. See, we had thought leadership assets. So sometime last year we had around 250 odd thought leadership assets, but it wasn't really personalized. Now we're talking about two things. On the one hand, you have personalization with filters applying to a B2C context, and you have the Facebooks of the world, data privacy issues and all that. On the other hand, in the B2B space, we haven't really taken to personalization that much. I mean, to be honest, insights itself, or thought leadership that serves to educate, inform through influence and authority, is just happening as we speak. McKinsey's of the world have got it right. The Bains, the big consulting firms have got it right. But what we were facing, we had around 250 odd thought leadership assets. It could be articles, reports, podcasts, etc. But it was not really customized for senior executives across the company. And the second aspect was that our thought leadership branding wasn't distinct enough, because everyone who came to Infosys, we were mainly looked upon as a services or a provider. People go to our services section of the website. Insights didn't really come out. So I feel the top differentiator when it comes to B2B needs to be thought leadership. It needs to be a way of catering to compelling talking points that senior executives, it could be sales, it could be account managers, it could be delivery heads across the company, can really take to market. And that is where we created something called an insight store as such. We looked at creating a thought leadership app for our executives, and this was tightly integrated within the sales effectiveness function. So that was in a way enabling those pathways for thought leadership to really be accessed anytime, anywhere. So that proved to be a very valuable app. It had a good user experience and is ranked #1 on the Insight Store portal as well, the Infimi portal. So I feel one of the key metrics that we can look at, especially from a B2B brand, is how much of the work we do is actually contributing to the brand value of the firm. And there's a strong correlation between the thought leadership rankings of a firm and brand rankings of a firm. Deloitte is a classic case where the thought leadership rankings went up as their brand value also rankings went up. So I feel the way we can differentiate is through putting out really compelling insights to influence decision making, and not really catering or pandering to vanity metrics in the space. It could be likes, impressions, page views, and so forth. So moving from an operational mindset to a more strategic mindset is where I would propose brands in the B2B space to go for.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Now we have this question towards Dr. Subra ma'am. As you have talked about the propaganda, persuasion, and so much content, which is we are basically flooded every day with so much content. So how can we defend ourselves against such manipulation and undue influence? How can we defend ourselves?
Okay, I think I got the most heavy question out of all of this about defending ourselves against propaganda. सबसे भारी भरकम सवाल मेरे लिए. Thank you, sir. So I think something that I have followed personally, I cannot speak for other people, but one thing that has helped me and my team always be very vigilant about the kind of content that we are consuming is, firstly, we follow legit sources. That is very important, because many media houses, many newspapers, even many TV channels, they might be, mouthpieces of a particular ideology or propaganda. So one thing which was a hobby of all of us is we always trace the roots. If there is something that is published in a particular newspaper or a channel, who is it owned by? Who are its promoters? Who is the owning or the parent company of that? From where is the funding coming for that parent company? Because you might not realize, but a lot of publications or a lot of media houses that you think are actually reputable are mouthpieces of foreign agencies, and you might not even know that. And those foreign agencies are going to dictate what Indians are going to think, what Indians are going to feel, what the students are going to feel like. So always be very vigilant in the sources that you consume your content from. One another thing, and this is not some kind of advice to others, this is just my personal experience, because I have been mentoring students for careers and placements, and their job searches for almost 5 years now. And one thing that I have seen, a shift that I have seen amongst the students of our country, is their pride of being Indian. And it makes me so happy, because I grew up in a foreign country. My parents live abroad, and my entire childhood was spent abroad. So when I was growing up, all the Indian kids का dream था, यार हम तो US जाएंगे, हमको UK जाके settle होना है, हमको भी गोरी जिंदगी जीनी है. That was mostly because I think they used to watch a lot of Karan Johar movies, and they saw a false perspective of what it is to go and live as an NRI. Guys, it's not like that. As an NRI in foreign countries. But now when I talk to the students, and I talk to almost 30 to 40 students a day, over 100 students a week, that is what my passion is, helping and mentoring students with their placements. I see that pride. And because I used to also mentor students on giving the foreign examinations and how they can find job opportunities. But now all the students tell me, hame India mein rehna hai. We want to build something here. We want to, build our startup here. And one of my mentees, his startup was recently launched, and they got funded, and very proudly he wrote in his product, proudly made in India. So this pride that I am seeing in the past few years in students makes me very happy, and it makes me very optimistic for the future. So all the students who are present here today, we belong to the most glorious civilization in the world. We were thought leaders in education, in science, in democracy, in society. So always have that pride within you that I represent India. And this makes me very proud to see this younger generation also feel that. Because in some of the years, I used to feel that pride diminishing. I used to feel that everything that is foreign or that is Western has been given precedence. But now that colonized mindset is going, and students are taking pride in being Indian. So kudos to this younger generation. You make me very happy and very optimistic. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I'd like to ask Aditi, ma'am, that how can we educate the consumers about positive and negative propaganda?
So I think the responsibility is at multiple levels, frankly. When we say consumers, consumers are people like all of us. We are all consumers. And therefore, the responsibility, like I said, is at multiple levels, wherein not only do we do it at an educational institution, we teach children not to just accept what is there, but to look at, maybe like Dr. Shubhra said, what is the source? Where is this coming from? I know a lot of children who say Wikipedia is the ultimate truth. But we have to realize Wikipedia is ultimately a crowdsourced thing. You and I can write whatever we want there. So it is very important for us to teach them this whole way of critical thinking, to question, because for a long time in history, before I would say technology took over, the whole source of knowledge was very controlled. There were a group of people, there were only Brahmins, or there were only known people who had access to knowledge. And therefore, the way knowledge was controlled, knowledge was spread, was a very different way. Today, because we all have access, anybody anywhere in the world can just show something without having much proof, without having much of a backing, and it can go, what we say, viral. Suddenly everybody thinks that is the truth, until somebody goes and proves that no, this is not correct. This doesn't have the backing. These are the reasons why it doesn't have the backing. It is just taken as a given fact. And I've seen people, I'm sure you also would have heard the term, we call it the WhatsApp Academy. The WhatsApp Academy churns out information by the dozen, and nobody is questioning the veracity. Nobody is questioning whether it is correct or incorrect. So that must come in a very, very young age, because that's when people form their points of view. That's our lifelong habits, and the way we will look at the world. That's the place. So we must start there. Parallelly, I think we must start with how parents deal with these questions. Quite often they get very irritated. Why are you asking me this? Why this? Again, this? It doesn't matter. Just accept it. We must change that. We must be open to being questioned, not just about what is being spoken, but also about what we are doing, how we are. We need to be more conscious as a society that, look, this is not the traditional way things were. We must change, and we must allow for that change to happen. And the third responsibility, I think, is media. There is a lot of influence which media has, just because they have the scope and scale. They have the access. We must be more responsible. We must focus on how we can make media more responsible for what they are doing. And as you would be seeing, I think the biggest thing that we face is when elections happen. And right now the country is on the cusp of elections in 5 different states. And if you see some of the propaganda which is around, logically, if you sit back and think, you say this cannot be possible. Why would, for example, something which came up just yesterday, why would somebody want to cancel an online meeting because of a weather problem? Question. Was it actually cancelled because of that? Was there something else? And if you look at the last month, starting from, I would say, the Prime Minister teleprompter issue to Netaji's so-called letter, each of them is a piece of propaganda in itself, because there are vested interests which are driving one story, and they just drown out any other story. So it is important for all of us to be able to question, and we must inculcate this right at the start. That would be my view.
Thank you, ma'am. So now I have next question to Vishwasanand Sarji. How AI and ML and different types of emerging technologies like neural networks and deep neural networks, how they can detect fake news, and how effective are they?
See, that's an evolving. I can't speak for the technology itself to really detect, because I've used it, a few times, but then AI and ML is only able to do so much. There's a lot of scope for improvement, because at a human, so at one level, it needs to connect to the way humans are able to dole out advice or dole out the kind of styles we use. Everything is very different. The element of empathy doesn't really come out through an AI and ML. When it that aspect of it, see, the aspect of AI and ML to really to create even insights, for that matter, even in the B2B space, to really detect what kind of insights are really working for a brand, what kind of insights are not working for a brand. That is at the highest level. Then we move lower down the rung and look at it more from, is it useful enough to make a difference in our lives? And then further down, the fake news, how it really can remove such obstacles in the spaces of creating very genuine truths in our lives. And what I feel is, I mean, so this aspect of content worthiness is not spoken about much. So because the whole world is driven around credit worthiness. We all speak about credit worthiness, and we talk about financial scoring and things like that. But what I feel is, when we're taking a step back, what we need to do in today's post-truth world is to really ensure that people and brands are accountable for their words. They don't go back on their truth-telling obligations. Uh, Not just brands' websites, but brands themselves and individuals themselves within brands. For them to be sustainable, they should really look at content worthiness from that aspect. If I were to type content worthiness in Google, you won't really find a lot of people talking about it. You'd probably hear about people talking about improving a website's rankings or getting the maximum shares out of a particular piece of content. So interestingly, I even found on the first page of my search an Investopedia link linking to credit worthiness. Now, what I believe strongly is that content worthiness should be spoken of in the same breath as credit worthiness. It builds that fabric of trust for it to be potent enough, and even more potent as we build on this concept. And I strongly believe that what credit worthiness is built over time, content worthiness can destroy in no time. We have a true content power that's really emerging. We want to be we want to validate every fact that's out there. We want to look at it from the ability of defining it. So if I were to really define the definition of content worthiness, would be something that it's a validation that determines the possibility that a person or a brand may default on his or her truth telling obligation. So if we really have these governance structures built into the philosophies of brands, I believe AI and ML will be able to do a much better job than what it is doing today.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So my next question is to Dr. Subraji, is that nowadays we can see there is a trend in using sustainability or green marketing concept by many companies. So what is your perspective on this? Whether we can see that there will be too much greenwashing or whether they are valid?
Thank you, sir. That's actually a very great question. I think sustainability has become very fashionable once more, and that's not a bad thing at all. It's actually very good, because anything, any business, any practice, if it is not sustainable, then you cannot carry it on for the future generations. And now it has become fashionable again. But historically, India had sustainable practices. Our practices were the most eco-friendly in the world because we lived in harmony with the nature. And as soon as more digitization and more technology and industrialization and the Western scientific way of thinking, which is, they term it as scientific, started impregnating into our daily lives, the more we started leaving our heritage and started adopting foreign way of living or thinking, the more and more we started living separately from nature. So I think that sustainability rift happened over there. Now again it is sustainable, and the most common thing that I see everywhere is going paperless. A lot of offices and a lot of companies are going paperless, but I don't think that is enough. More needs to be done in that. But overall it is a change in the right direction. Nowadays you also have a lot of what will I say, eco propaganda or eco warriors or eco protests happening. Those are a little different from what will actually productively make a change, because you don't need to come and tell Indians to be more eco-friendly. We were the most eco-friendly civilization of the whole world. So there is a new word that has been coined, Andolan Jivi, and a lot of you know what it is. Anything that is giving progress, any kind of growth that is happening, you will find a section of people coming and doing protest. I think that will be the new LinkedIn tagline, CEO at doing protest and getting more people. So I wanted to tell the students that any growth or any progress does not come without struggle. And now, because the winds are shifting in such a direction that growth is happening, progress is happening, so many people in many segments will not be happy with it, right? Because their jobs are getting lost. What were their jobs? Protesting. So if you have growth, how will you keep doing your jobs? So because of that, I think there is another section of eco warriors that is coming up, which is becoming disruptive. But overall, this is a wonderful trend, and this is going to make us more and more sustainable as we move forward. So, there are a lot of corporates that actually do a lot of sustainability business competitions. I think L'Oreal Sustainability Challenge is a great example of that. When we were in MBA, we had to do this competition where we had to take a picture and then post about it. So even in that small way, they at least made us think, what can we do around our campus to make it more sustainable? So I think that is a very good step from a corporate in furthering the sustainability cause. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Now I would like to request Aditi ma'am to share her thoughts on sustainability in persuasion and propaganda.
So I think talking about sustainability, yes, some of the other trends that we see is, a stronger view towards minimalism. That's also something that is going, wherein people are really questioning what is it that we need in our lives. One category I think which is getting impacted in a big way is actually automobiles, wherein we see a lot of young people today. Earlier there used to be this hierarchy, I'll start working and then I will get a vehicle and then I will do this, and that hierarchy is changing. So one big thing I think is this category, that do I really need to have a vehicle of my own? The other thing that we are seeing is that even in the way consumption of some categories happen, like a lot of young people I'm seeing, if they are staying by themselves, do I really need a large TV? Or is there a projector combination that I can use, which links into my laptop, and I don't necessarily need a television for entertainment, because in any case most of the things that I'm consuming is online. So there is a shift in terms of what we call ownership of products, because the more products you want to own, the more challenging it is for the entire ecosystem to produce those products. So I think that is one. In fashion also, we are seeing that, do you really want to change fashion every month or every season? Can you really repeat the clothes? And this has come in a lot with celebrities. Can you really repeat the clothes that you have worn before? So I think this will percolate and grow. And perhaps we will be a lot more conscious about how much do you really need to live a good, fulfilled life? Because the impact of what has happened to the ecology is visible. If you see across the last 10 years, there is a dramatic shift of what weather used to be 10 years ago versus today. And I'm speaking from Delhi, so I can really tell you, I mean, 2 days back was the coldest day that has ever been seen in February. You can see me, all packed. And earlier when I was young, Saraswati Puja was a light white outfit with yellow, and you would feel so comfortable in it. And this impact is now something I think everybody is realizing and appreciating. And it's very important for us to really review our own life and see how many things do we really need, what all is required, and be more conscious in terms of the consumption that we have. The biggest change I think which happened with the opening of the economy was that suddenly people became desirous of having the same things that were available in the Western world. But it is not necessary for all of us to have a fulfilled life. We have a very different way of living, different way of thinking. And that is what I think we have to look at, that what is important for us as a country, as an economy, and as individuals, because that is what is going to be, making things successful in the future. And in terms of propaganda, I would only again caution everyone that be vigilant, be careful, because it is very easy for any message to spread even faster than a forest fire. So always question, always check, see the source, and then form your own opinions.
Thank you, ma'am. So we have a couple of audience questions. So we have one interesting question from Harshita. She's asking that companies are using growth hacking strategies like referrals, interactive content marketing. How does it influence consumers at a cognitive level? So I would like to request Mr. Vishwasanand to answer this question. Growth hacking, content marketing, how cognitively it's impacting.
Definitely. It all relates to the whole idea of what are the kind of metrics you use to really measure your content marketing strategy. So even when I was talking about vanity metrics, growth hacking, I mean, as a term, it's fine. It could be viewed as jargon. So one of the key metrics we look at, and as I was mentioning before, is that measuring the thought leadership rankings with the brand rankings. And the differentiation can happen when you're not really distracting the desired thought leadership positioning of the firm with that of the services and product offerings of your firm. You need to move very strategically around the 3 A's, like I was saying, that authenticity, accuracy, and agility. You need to first be authentic enough to build a human connection with the desired branding, the desired storytelling. You need to build credibility through accuracy, have that kind of research-backed insight, and be agile enough to really present your ideas with anticipated trends in mind. A classic example is omni-channel retail. It wasn't a very popular term. Sometime in 2013 was when IDC started first using the term. And then it took at least a good 2 to 3 years to really kick in and make brands really aware of what omni-channel is all about. So it's not only the secondary research that goes with it, but also the primary research and being able to design your surveys to capture consumer interest in real time. So because changing trends are happening, and as our previous panelists also spoke about sustainability as well. So really being able to take a niche, take that balanced approach between niche topics like sustainability and certain trending ones, like omni-channel retail probably is a trending one today. So being able to do that and not really pander to those vanity metrics, I think that is where we can see brands also look at growth hacking approaches along this space, because if we clearly look at this, we are building share of voice around topics that are very relevant to our consumers, and we're not really looking at just producing content according to what consumers want at a certain point of time. Anticipating a future need is really critical to a brand's growth.
Thank you so much. So another
sir,
question from, yes, please.
Sir, excuse me, sir. Sir, questions. We are also getting lots of questions. We'll be just asking the questions after the discussion gets over, if it's all right.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
You can continue with the discussion. We'll ask after this.
Okay. Fine. So I would like to ask, like, this is something, my personal thought on this is that we know about garbage in, garbage out. We know about there is so much biases in the algorithms, including when we consider different races or ethnicity or culture. So how companies should deal with that? The biases already hidden in the algorithms, already hidden in different processes. How do we deal with that? So any of our esteemed panelists can answer that.
Sorry.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, so I just wanted to share, the company that I work with, and this is something which has been of concern to everyone. So what we have done at a global level is to create a council wherein we are looking at the top 7, media houses or platforms, which includes Google, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, and multiple such partners, and work with them on a framework which drives in, the whole need to look at how you are addressing audiences, what is the way, what is the openness of information which is available. Because one of the other things, because we work in advertising and marketing, is that how much data is available for you to slice and dice, because that also makes your messaging very, very controlled. And if you look at the algorithms of some of these players, it's sometimes quite scary about, what all do they know about you? Probably some of the things you also don't realize that they know about you. And that is why we have created this whole council, which is working with all of them. And glad to report that over the last 2 rounds, which is over the last 1 year that we have worked with them, some of them have actually come back and changed some of the things that they are collecting about consumers, and also declared. See, the other thing is, a lot of information is collected. It's not declared. It's not available or known to people. So also declared to the community at large, and therefore shifted some of the parameters and metrics. So I think it's something that we need to be absolutely careful and conscious about, and question these people, because the kind of impact that they drive in the world, we must be able to question and check Otherwise, they can, there is this term saying power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So we must not be, in a position where we drop this vigilance. Please go ahead, Dr. Shubhra.
Thank you, Aditi ma'am. My perspective was a little different. It was more personalized because I do work with the global marketing team. So I work with a team that consists of people from all different continents, from the UK, from the US, from Southeast Asia. And there are differences when it comes to doing business in different continents. Something that might be considered, very okay and polite in the Indian subcontinent might not actually go over there. So I think initial training and communication is very important. Open communication and sensitivity training is also very important in these, and I have gone through those, so I can say very confidently that it has made me very comfortable with dealing with people of different nationalities. Because see, it's not about your intent. I'm sure your intent must have been really great, but sometimes the way a thing is communicated or the way you are speaking with different sets of people, even clients who are global, it can have a big impact. And that is why, because today is Saraswati and we say Saraswati stays on the tongue of people, right? So how you speak and how you communicate is very important. Before, I used to just speak what I thought, but now because I deal with a global team, so I always say it in my mind, or I always assess it first, that whatever I'm saying, is it going to come across in the way I want it or I intend it to? So this is a very good tip for the students who are present here in today's session as well, because you all will be sitting for your placements, your GDs, your PIs, and GD में तो इतना ज़्यादा competition होता है कि आप बस घुस जाओ, वही बहुत बड़ी बात होती है. But even at that time, make sure that you go over it in your head. Is it sounding okay? When you're sitting for your PI or your personal interview, sometimes the recruiter might ask you something that throws you off. They'll ask you, you have stress interviews where they ask you difficult questions just to see how you can handle the pressure. Or sometimes they put you under a lot of stress to see how you are able to handle that situation. At that time, and I know it's difficult, but don't blurt out the first thing that comes to your mind. Always go through it in your head, or always try to taper it down a bit when you're trying to communicate. I did this and it paid dividends, so I hope this helps you out as well. That was my addition, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Subra. I'd like to request Vishwas Anandji to share your thoughts on algorithms, how algorithms can change the world.
Regarding algorithms, my biggest thing is that, I mean, Charles Spurgeon once said this, and I'll quote him. So he said, "A lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is still putting on its shoes." So now in this digital era, what we really see is that this lie has probably traveled the world 10 times over, while the truth is probably isolated to some filter bubble. Sustainable brands, individuals, they really must be custodians and genuine storytellers of the truth at all times. And that is where the algorithms of the world can really come in and make a really good difference in the way we revolutionize the way brand engagement happens and reinforce those positive relationships. Because what we always tend to see is that groupthink takes over, be it in executive councils or be it even among consumers. Now, if we try to come out of that kind of mindset, and groupthink is not bad, but if we really channelize it to move into an auto propaganda mode where we are only consuming information that we want to see rather than what we need, that becomes a dangerous precedent. So I would really advise against that and move into more into nudging people into more positive behavioral modes that we can help reflect on, that an algorithm can look at more from at a human level, because I don't think until now algorithms have been able to look at it. And I was coming across recent stats that it's a very popular person has mentioned it's going to be light years away since algorithms really decode the human mindset and channelize it to really build that kind of empathy. So I feel if algorithms are able to do it one step at a time, we will move into a very good future.
Thank you so much. We are like to take this conversation forward, but due to time constraint, we have to stop here. And now I'd like to request Sakleen to take this session forward. Sakleen.
Yes, sir. And as you said, due to time constraint, we have to cut this discussion short. But I think I am speaking for everyone when I say that we could have this conversation on and on and on. And perhaps when everything, this COVID situation boils over, we can invite all our guests to our campus as well to perhaps take this conversation forward. And again, thank you to all the panel members for this insightful deliberation and the contemplation, and also thank you for all your advices. I'm
Yes,
sure all the
Sakleen.
students. Yes, sir.
Sakleen, I would like to interject at this point of time, Dr. Ravi.
Sure, sir.
First of all, I would like to express my heartfelt thanks to Mr. Vishwas Anand and Aditi and Dr. Subhra also for participating in these wonderful discussions, question and answer Samvaad discussions on various aspects of the questions raised by Dr. Ravi. So I, as a director on behalf of MDI Murshidabad, would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to all the speakers.
Thank you, sir. It was a pleasure and honor.
And lastly, I would like to tell the students that I'm not a media guy. So I'm an economist and a professor, now the administrator, and working with various government companies and on the board of various government companies as an independent director. See, these days, what is important for the students to know, until what is the takeaway from these three great minds? The takeaway from these three great minds to my mind is this, that CNG, connect, nurture, and grow. Now, how will you connect with the world outside? Dr. Subhra has rightly mentioned about through WhatsApp, through Facebook, through LinkedIn, through emails. Purpose has to be defined. The goal has to be very much clear in your mind, that for what purpose are you going to the media? Question one. Question two, that why are you going to the media? Are you going to the media simply for getting connected with the world outside and then make yourself present yourself to the world as who are you? If you want to present to the world who are you, my dear students, it takes years of your hard work to prove yourself who are you. Who am I? You cannot find an answer to the question of who am I? I am this, I am that, I have done MBA, I have done this, I am doing a job, this, blah, blah. Therefore, before you find an answer to the question, who am I? You have to create your own story of your life. Everybody sitting here is having his or her story of life. And if you have built up a story of your life, your sustained hard work, then you can publish that story of your life on a particular social media platform. And then believe me, that thousands and thousands, millions of people will like it, will write comment on it. But before that, the condition is you become a successful. You go for success in your life. You create your own vision and your ambition, your dream of your life. What Dr. Subhra and Aditi and Vishwas has really inspired you. I was just listening to them very carefully. Is that Sakleen and all the students, do you have a dream of your life? Do you have a passion to achieve the dream of your life? Now ask question to yourself. Initially, Dr. Subhra said that you must ask questions. You must ask questions, but the right question that will come from your heart. Now, the right question will come to your heart if you read hard, if you work hard, isn't it? So therefore, in a Samvaad like this, in a discussion like this, where we are questioning, answering, discussing, it's a beautiful way of expression of thoughts and the ideas and the mind. So I think I would like to request my young minds and the students on behalf of these three speakers also that keep this momentum forward, and each one of you have the potential. Each one of you have the potential, I can see your faces, to become a great socially responsible leader in our country, a corporate leader, a societal leader, a national leader. Wherever you go, you can become and you can lead the way. Thank you very much, Dr. Ravi and Mr. Sakleen, for giving me this opportunity to connect with these three speakers, with these three great minds. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, very much. And indeed, yes, we'll keep on dreaming and hopefully we'll turn those dreams into reality as well. And again, I would like to thank all the panel members for your discussion and contemplation, and a special thank you to Ravi sir on behalf of the whole PR Media and Web Committee for moderating this session. So I would just now quickly go on. We have a lots of questions actually, but we will not be able to take all the questions. We have selected few, and we will go to the question and answer session very quickly. And I will just ask Indresh from PR Media and Web Committee to just move forward with the question and answers, please.
Yes, thank you, Sir Glenn. And I would like to thank all the panelists and Dr. Ravi Shankar sir for moderating the event. So moving on to the Q&A session, Amandeep, you can go ahead with your question.
Yeah, good afternoon to all the panelists. So my question would be like in 2016, we all saw how Cambridge Analytica infamously got highlighted while they acquired data from Facebook and they tried to manipulate the US elections. So my question would be, should there be a regulator that must be hired by all the social media companies? And primarily why I ask this question is because like we're going forward, sometimes the subject does not even realize that he's getting manipulated, because these propaganda and narrative campaigns are being run so smartly that we as a subject are not able to realize that we are getting manipulated, and subconsciously we are changing our thoughts. So what would be your views?
So, okay, let me attempt to answer, and I'm sure Dr. Shubhra and Vishwas can add in. So one thing, you very rightly said the subject doesn't realize, and I would suggest to all of you, if you get the opportunity, watch this movie called The Social Network. It actually will explain to you how this data is collected, what is the level of data which gets collected and manipulated. So it's a quasi documentary and it will help you understand. That said, the question that you have raised, the challenge is that most of these companies are global companies. And like I was sharing, that our company, because it is US based, and a lot of these companies are also US based, they have managed to create a forum where they are putting pressure, saying that these are the things which need to be regulated and looked at. And if you have been reading the newspapers in the country, you would see that the government of India has also raised a lot of questions on social media, saying that, how do we monitor? You must appoint a person who is responsible for checking whether news is correct, whether it's getting directed in, to the wrong people, or is fake news being promoted. So governments across the world are trying. However, because there is no single person who has the authority, or there is no single body which has the authority to control all these companies together. That is why the effort is being made at two levels. One is, like I said, governments across the world are asking questions. The second thing, if you have read, about a few years back, there is a rule called GDPR, which came into force, wherein for all of Europe, the European Union, there is a very clear mandate on what kind of data can be collected and till when you can use the data. So if they collect the data, they have to declare to the consumer that I'm collecting this data for this purpose. And then at a certain point of time, that data has to be removed from the records of both the social media company as well as the consumer company. So there are rules like that which are coming in, but the pace of growth of technology is such that, the moment you have a rule, there is also a side way to sort of counter that, which is also happening, which is why this whole duality of consumers and people like us also being very careful is important.
I would just like to add that there are certain companies that have more like an oversight board, like Facebook, for instance, has appointed people within different countries into their oversight board, content oversight board. So they are looking at the content control and governance from the platform perspective. So there are two dimensions to it, as Aditi pointed out. So one is that how much of information can really be controlled. It should not be entirely into the hands of regulators, because that also violates a basic sense of expression from the people curating such content. So you need to take a balanced approach between that, and the oversight board can spot. They are people from eminent fields who are appointed into this board. It's for a certain platform. Of course, I mean, different other platforms can also have or are into looking at it from a long-term perspective, given the huge importance it's really weighed down consumers on this whole impact on social and the negativity that spirals out of it. So I think there's huge reforms in order that can help the cause of a lot of individuals and brands going forward.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you for your insights, sir and ma'am. So we will now move on to the next question. That was by Nikhil Singh. So Nikhil, if you could please raise your hand and go ahead with your question, please.
Thank you, Indresh. Just a second. So my question was, could the esteemed panelists shed some light on how propaganda is being used in today's business world to negatively influence the customers? And also, there is a very thin line of difference between propaganda and persuasion. So as a consumer, I would like to know that how exactly should we differentiate between both? Am I audible?
Yes.
You can go ahead.
Oh, sorry, was I not
No,
audible?
I wasn't. Yeah, I wasn't sure who it was directed to. So
yeah, Nikhil. Nikhil, they heard your question. Any one of you can attempt the question.
Yeah, sure.
If you want to go ahead.
Okay, great. So I believe, I mean, brands for one. See, I'm in the B2B space, so it becomes essentially a very critical aspect to lead with insight and to take a very balanced approach when it comes to letting our audiences know the importance of how surveys among consumers have altered the perception over time. So we are basically trying to voice out the what is changing in the business world, while not really attesting to any kind of propaganda ourselves. So when I say that, I would just quote an example. So we were talking about the importance of hybrid work in our newsletters. We were talking about how hybrid work is really improving the aspects of human lives and all that. And then in a very specific industry, we came up with a survey and just realized that 63% of employees in the banking space, they want to work in the office 4 to 5 days a week. There's nothing wrong about that, but that just shows a transition from basically a set of people who really believed in the philosophy of hybrid work. So what I would say is that the perceptions are created to influence decision making at different stages in the business world, and if we are able to lead with insight, the insight comes through rather than the propaganda behind it.
Yes, sir. So thank you very much for the detailed answer.
Thank you, sir, for your insights on Nikhil's question. And we will take up a few more questions if all the panelists are fine with it. So the next question that came in was from Shikha. Shikha, if you're there.
Yeah, thank you, Indresh. Thank you, panelists. It was such an insightful session and a very happy Vasant Panchami to all of you. So I wanted to ask that how do political parties use propaganda as a tool to influence the mass voters? Also, how do companies in the advertising industry make it ethical while serving the purpose of the political parties? Aditi ma'am, if you could answer that.
Okay, so I will attempt, and I have worked with some political parties in the past. So I will try to attempt to answer that from that learning and the experience that we went through. So political advertising is quite different from the way we do advertising for a brand or a company, because in case of political advertising, there are three things which are very important. One is that you must be able to scale out your message to a much larger audience than what you need to do perhaps for a brand or a company, because they always operate in, a particular group or a certain mindset, whereas the political message has to go to everyone, because anybody who is above 18 years of age, it is a message which is important for them. Therefore, the way we will want to use insights, or what is the learning, what is the political peg that you want to use, becomes quite a complex exercise of mapping different audience cohorts and the message that you want to give to them. So, for example, like we spoke about, right now there are elections around the corner, and there are multiple kind of issues which are under question. So the way political advertising starts is really the political party itself, what they call their manifesto. Basis that, they identify what is the promise that they want to make to the voters if they are voted to power. And then the role of a an advertising agency or a media agency is essentially to see, okay, if this is your promise, how best and simplest can I convert this into a message which can be shared. So that's the the process, I would say. Usually the agencies or the partners are not really creating the message, unlike what they may do in case of a company or a brand, where they can ideate and discuss, okay, should I talk this or should I talk this? Because in case of political communication, it is always the party's prerogative. They will have their own teams which will decide which message needs to go out basis their understanding. And if you have been following this field, it's a field which is filled with lots and lots of data in terms of how do you analyze consumer trends, behaviors. There are cephalogists who analyze, I would say constituency by constituency, what is the expected trend or expected issue which is going to be picked up. So there is a lot of data and analysis which goes behind that. Coming to the second part of your question in terms of ethics. So yes, I would say political advertises is a very, very balanced line, because there are places when it can devolve into, I would say mudslinging. But usually the mudslinging kind of thing happens between, I would say, let's say people who are competing for the same seat or opponents from the party, and it's usually not a part of the advertising. The advertising would be always talking good things, rosy things of, what we will do if we come to power, what has been the growth which has happened with some stats or data. So the challenge happens in terms of, I would say keeping to the truth of what is being communicated, and what Vishwas spoke about, being authentic. You want to give the message in an attractive manner, in a good ad, or in a nice story, but the message that you are giving has to still have some truth. If it doesn't have the truth, then it is very easy for anybody who is being seen as the target for that communication to completely discard it, disbelieve it. And if that happens in political advertising, it's pretty much death. So it has to be therefore rooted, the messaging, official messaging, the advertising that you do has to be rooted in reality. However, what happens is that now with the growth of technology and social media, a lot of official messaging gets lampooned. It gets converted into, different takes by different people. And quite often that floods, I would say, your feed or your consumption of content wherein you are not able to differentiate. So that is a challenge that I would say all political parties face today. And that is more handled by what would be the info cell or the communication cell. Quite often their official stance on a situation is something that you would be able to see on a lot of debates or discussions which happen across both online as well as offline news channels, wherein you would have invitees from different parties coming together, giving their point of view, and sometimes having very, very heated debates. So political communication actually operates at these three different levels.
That was really great, ma'am. Just a little follow-up. See, a lot of times it happens that what is being asked to the media company by the political parties may not be in line with the values and the ethics that the company internally holds. So how do you deal with that cases? Because we always have that pressure that even if you want to turn down an offer, it should be in a very polite way so that nothing goes wrong or nothing goes out of the line. So how do you deal with that?
So okay, so now these are issues. Politics is of course a hotbed, but for example, this issue can come up in other areas. For example, a lot of people may not believe in tobacco. People may not believe in alcohol. People may not believe in gaming and gambling. So quite often, when you work in companies or corporates, you will have such situations wherein there is a client who is wanting you to work on their business, but you do not ethically match, or you do not believe in the same way of doing business. And what we have found is that the best way is to politely decline, because if you take on the business, then it becomes your responsibility, and then a day-to-day friction, a day-to-day challenge is a much more difficult and challenging thing to manage. So what we have found works the best is that if you feel that a company is not on the same page as you are in terms of what is desirable, what is the way that you would want to conduct business, it is just best to peacefully decline and move ahead with that, even if it is very lucrative in terms of business. And just to share with you an insight, I don't know if you guys are exposed, but political advertising is a very, very huge and lucrative business. Unlike how media operates typically, when we do advertising for brands or companies, you typically pay media houses or media partners after your advertising is done. But all political party advertising operates on advance, because nobody knows who's going to win, and then they may refuse to pay you. So it's a very, very lucrative business. However, like you said, it is also very challenging from multiple points of view. And we have found that it's just better that if you are not aligned to the view that is being promoted, you should just not be a part of it.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am, for your insights, and what a wonderful question, Shikha. So, although we have a lot of questions flowing in for us and for the panelists, but if I would request just the last question that we're going to take up, which is from Ravi. So, Ravi, if you could please raise your hand and go ahead with your question.
Thank you, Naresh. I would like to thank the PR media team for organizing such a wonderful event, and thank you for all the guests for throwing the insight on such a wonderful topic. So my question is, does net zero emission provide companies a leeway to decrease their carbon footprint and increase renewable energy, or is it just a corporate propaganda tool? As we know, a lot of companies are talking about net zero emissions. So I would like to hear your take on that. Shubhram, if you want to answer that.
Thank you for this question, Ravi, but I think my other panelists would be better suited to answer this one. You're asking a doctor and a marketeer about net zero emissions. तो थोड़ा आप target ढंग से करें questions को. I would request my other panelists if they could shed more light on this. If you want to know about personal branding, marketing, or placements, go ahead and shoot all the questions you want to at me. For this, I think my other panelists are way more experienced.
See, when it comes to net carbon zero emissions, I'd say Infosys has really taken a lead on that. So I'd like to start off on that note. And we've recently launched a practical sustainability book. It was just launched last week. So while it's certainly at an inflection point, so what the pandemic has done is it's accelerated really several mega trends in this space. It's created a $2.5 trillion dollar market for smart buildings in cities. And we are really at the threshold of one of those great business booms. So right from Google's to the Microsofts of the world to the niche unicorns. So most people who would look at practical sustainability, it would be that kind of a new Silicon Valley for the built world. And how the key aspects we would really look at is how the different roles are really delivered to cater to both people, planet, on the trinity of people, planet, and purpose. So experience always matters. We are looking at a greater emphasis on occupants, on first-line workers, on building smart buildings, elevating safety, security, productivity among all, and the ethics of intelligent building. So given that it's a book, I can't speak too much about it. It'll take a very long time to really speak about it, but I invite you and encourage you to really take a look at the book. It provides a very practical approach to how It can connect smart spaces, and it can lead to really significant results, whether it's a global enterprise, a small company, or a government entity.
Thank you, sir.
So I would like to thank all the panelists for answering so many questions patiently. And I would also like to add that if any of you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to us, and we will forward your questions to the panelists as and when required. Now I would request Saklen to take over.
Yes, Pooja, you can go. You can go ahead.
Thank you, Sakleen. So I would like to thank you all. That was a very informative and intuitive discussion. Due to lack of time, we won't be able to take all the questions, but thank you to everyone who questioned. Now I would like to invite Sankar Narayan from the PR Media and Web Committee to deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Pooja, and thank you for all the panelists for dissecting the words propaganda and persuasion and giving us examples that everyone can relate to. And I'm sure the students would have picked a lot of insights from this intriguing panel discussion and how propaganda and persuasion affects in the era of social media, internet advertising, and television. I would like to express my gratitude on behalf of the whole of the Syndicon team and the whole of MDI Murshidabad to all the esteemed delegates and the panel discussion for their presence and contribution to making this discussion a great success. I extend my gratitude to the Honorable Chief Guest, Dr. Shubhra Chakraborty, Mr. Vishwas Anand, and Ms. Aditi Mishra for taking their time out of their busy schedules to grace this event. Well, an event like this could not have happened overnight. The wheel started rolling months ago, and it requires planning and bird's eye details. And we have been fortunate enough to be backed by a team of motivated and dedicated colleagues of MDI Murshidabad who know their job and are result oriented. Now, I would like to request Dr. Chetan GK, who is the chairperson of the Management Development Program and Consulting and Associate Professor of Finance of MDI Murshidabad, to express his views on this session.
Sankar, I think Chetan sir had an emergency. I think he had a meeting, so he had to leave. You can just move forward.
Okay. So once again, we are thanking you all on behalf of the whole of the MDI Murshidabad, and we are looking forward to have much more interactive sessions to the esteemed guests, and hope this new connection will have a long way to go with our institution. Before wrapping up this session, we would also would like to show what's in store for the next session. That's tomorrow by 12:30 p.m. And Amog, if you can share your screen and show us a trailer of what's going to happen tomorrow, it would be great.
I would like to interrupt in between. Before Amog, you share your screen, I would like to thank everyone. So I would also like to say that as a token of appreciation to all our esteemed guests, we have planted trees in their name at Trees for Tigers, Sundarban National Park, which is situated in West Bengal. We will also be mailing your certificates, and you can check out the location of our trees as well. Once again, we would like to thank you on behalf of the whole PR Media and Web Committee for taking out time of your busy schedule and being with us today. With this, we come to an end of E-Samvaad for day 1. Don't forget to join us tomorrow for day 2 of Samvaad 2022. Have a great afternoon.
And before we leave, we'll just finish up with our trailer for tomorrow. Amog, sure. You can go ahead.
What's the thing, please?
Anukriti, you're not audible. If you could please.
Am I audible now?
Yes.
I think our guests were wanting to conclude the session. So before I start the video, Dr. Shubhra, you were wanting to say something. Please go ahead.
No, I just wanted to thank all of you for this wonderful session. And I wanted to wish all the students all the best for your upcoming summer placements and your final placements. That's it. Itna kuch nahi bolna tha. I wanted to thank you guys. That's it.
Thank you, ma'am, very much. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Also like to express my gratitude for inviting me to this panel. And
you have to allow the speakers to say thank you, no, towards the end. That's what we wanted to say.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah, I just wanted to also add, I think, a lovely gesture to plant trees. It's really a great thing to see. And It was good to be a part of such an engaging session. All the best to all of you.
Thank you, ma'am. We are honored to have you all with us today.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much from.
So that is what we have in store for all of you tomorrow. Do join us. And before we wrap up, the stage is open to anyone for any final remarks with that. Director sir, if you have anything to just conclude.
First of all, I would like to express my heartfelt thanks to all the three great speakers, Vishwas Anandji, Dr. Shubhra and Aditi, for your valuable time, for engaging session with the students, for raising questions, for guiding them and inspiring them. And I think it is important for the students also to, to learn from them. But I would like to extend my invitation to all the three speakers, to come and visit the campus. It's a beautiful campus. And we'd like to welcome you physically here in the classroom as well as in the auditorium. And would like to have one-to-one interaction with the students once the institute is now opening up. So I give my open invitation to three of you to kindly visit the campus. And would like to visit Murshidabad, the Dharampur, and it's a very historical place, you will definitely like it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Yes, our doors are always open to all of you. And with your kind permission, I would like to conclude our session for today. See you all tomorrow. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Namaste.
Thank you so much, everyone.